Chapter 11, Encounter is like an arrow, and it has been almost 2 months since I came to Hogwarts. Today, Malfoy is very excited, and he can be described in one word: his form, his mouth raised slightly even at dinner. I'm not going to get a permit, I'm so happy. Pansy beside him was using a knife and fork to deal with the smoked fish on the plate. This is just permission, this represents knowledge, wisdom, and power. Malfoy is different from the calmness of today. Said loudly. I think you should take your plate over there. Pansy pointed to Ravenclaw's side. Due to his outstanding performance in many subjects, Malfoy finally obtained the right to freely borrow most of the books in the library today, without having to ask Mrs. Pings. Some books contain powerful black magic that has never been taught at Hogwarts. These books can only be used by students who choose advanced black magic defense. If you want to see this part, students need the permission and signature of the teacher to borrow. For him now, the range of books that can be borrowed has been expanded once again, except for some solitary treasures or some too dangerous black magic books that need to be consulted. For him, all other books are free. I don't think you can concentrate on class today. Seeing Malfoy's excited expression, Pansy started her poisonous tongue again, obviously dissatisfied with his appearance. I was not so happy to see you when I was with me. Pansy felt a little unbalanced in her heart. You're right, you'll have to wait for class next time. Malfoy tried to calm himself down, and apparently didn't hear Pansy's tone sour. But it was clear that Malfoy was a little absent today. The last class in the afternoon was herbal medicine class, and Malfoy rushed to the library in one get-out of class. Professor Sprout, who is so irritating, doubts whether the effect of his lecture today is bad. I really don't know if there is a problem with the branch cap. A group of Ravenclaw students were whispering. If he was our college cup this year, it should be ours. Obviously this news has spread to several colleges. What's so good, don't you just get better grades? Ron in Gryffindor's lounge was a little bit upset. I think we should think about how to apologize to Hermione. This is the most critical. Harry changed the subject. Apology? Yojadim Leviosa. Ron shouted suddenly, did you see her like that? We seem to be mentally handicapped in her eyes. Ron, enough, you know she doesn't mean that. Harry interrupted Ron. I think you must have seen her crying just now. So what? Ron's face was uneasy. Obviously, it is not a proud thing to make a girl cry in any situation. Let's go apologize to her at the Halloween party. I know you are just talking hard, Harry said. It's done. I apologize. Ron was impatient. Malfoy was walking through the bookshelf at this time. The history of Hogwarts is so long that wood bookshelves have begun to decay in some places, exuding the smell of rotten wood, and some books have been dusty for too long and have been covered with dust. Malfoy was looking for some of the secret knowledge he wanted. He glanced quickly. His feet followed his gaze constantly. He stopped and stood in front of one of the oldest bookshelves. It's you. Malfoy pulled out a book, and the cover of the book was a little fuzzy, with a thick layer of gray on it, making it difficult to see the title. Clean up. Malfoy used magic. This book looks better, but the blurred words due to the erosion of time are still not clear. Enough. Malfoy thought. By the way, today it seems to go back early. It seems to be an important day. Malfoy doesn't usually care about these activities, but today everyone seems to be a little excited. Both the teacher and the students were discussing heatedly. Pansy seemed to hint him a few times in the morning. Did you say something like candy pumpkin? Halloween. Malfoy seemed to remember something suddenly. This seems to be a keynote of the plot, yes, monster. Malfoy was thinking, and suddenly felt his back hit hard. I'm sorry. A familiar female voice came from behind. Isn't this the protagonist of today? Malfoy looked back, and his unkempt curly hair came into his eyes. Who else would be Hermione? Her eyes were a little red, obviously she just cried just now. Isn't this Gryffindor a know-how? It seems that you are in a bad mood today. Who is arguing with? Malfoy asked knowingly. In his last life, Malfoy had heard a theory that some people tended to hold up in front of familiar people, but unloaded their armor in front of unfamiliar people. It seems to be confirmed today. A thin mist suddenly appeared in Hermione's eyes. She said, "They all said that I like to please the teacher. Ron also said in the curse class that I was like a nightmare. I just wanted to remind him of his spell. It's not right. Why did they say that to me?" Hermione seemed to burst out suddenly. "And what kind of mud kind that the people in your college have been calling me, this nickname is annoying. Do you want to see my jokes now? The only place I am proud of in front of you is gone." Malfoy was dumbfounded because he thought they were not acquaintances. UU reading www.uukunksha.com. Hermione's weak performance now makes him feel that his current occupation should be a psychologist. Take the responsibility to enlighten her. Cough. Malfoy coughed. Then, as Slytherin's best current year, I think I can now apologize to you for those students who are not successful in our college. Malfoy slightly lowered. Then, I want to express my apologies. I hope you can enjoy the face. How about the Duke of Honey candy shop? Today is Halloween. Hermione froze for a while. Apparently she said those words just to vent her emotions, just want to drive him away and calm herself. But he didn't expect him to apologize, not only for being angry. Aren't you angry? Hermione's voice suddenly weakened. I think since a Griffin has the courage to apologize to a Slytherin, then I can't be too stingy. Isn't it? Malfoy obviously mentioned the last thing. Hermione was silent for a while, and suddenly whispered, Hogsmeade can only go on Saturday, with the permission of the third grader and teacher. There are only places in this world that I would rather not go to, but no places I can go. The courage of Gryffindor should also include breaking the rules. Maybe if you violate some rules, you can get together with them, right? Come with me. Malfoy said as he lifted his legs. It seemed like Hermione had made up her mind. She stomped her legs and followed Malfoy. Gryffindor students are born with risk factors, right? UU Reading is welcome to readers. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all at UU. For mobile phone users, please read. Chapter 12, Candy Store and Misunderstanding. Malfoy walked fast and Hermione had to trot to keep up. How are we going? Once determined, Hermione seemed to be more active than Malfoy. Follow me. Hermione followed Malfoy from east to west, entering the classroom for a while and leaving the classroom for a while. Soon, they came to the middle half of the fourth-floor corridor. It's you. Malfoy walked straight to a witch statue. The witch came on his back and only had one eye. Separate left and right. Malfoy tapped the stone witch with a wand. The hunchback of the statue immediately opened, large enough for a slightly thinner to enter. How do you know there is an institution here? Hermione asked curiously. Secret. Malfoy sold a pass. If you don't say it, don't say it. Hermione was annoyed, but at the same time she seemed to have forgotten the previous unhappiness. Follow me, don't get lost. Even if you seem to get in from here, you won't get lost. Tell them that they entered the hole opened by the witch. The two of them glide for quite a long distance, like a stone slide. I don't know how long after that, they feel like they are standing on the ground again. It's really cold here. Malfoy couldn't help but shudder. Fluorescent flashing. The dark place will naturally use this spell. Here is a real rabbit. Hermione looked at it for a while and came to such a conclusion. Don't be distracted, look at your feet. Malfoy reminded. The ground here is bumpy, and if you don't pay attention, it will fall. After a while, Hermione almost fell a few times. Malfoy helped her in time. Itinerary is a bit boring, but because the two are not lonely, the two have a chat with each other. An hour passed quickly. I am now wondering if you are trying to murder a Muggle-born wizard. As the gossip progressed, the two became more familiar. Hermione even made this joke. You see how secret this is, I can't beat you again. This joke is not funny, but I also have a headache for my parents' ideas. Malfoy shrugged. Oh, we're about to arrive. Malfoy felt the passage start to steepen. 10 minutes later, the two came to a dilapidated stone staircase that stretched to where they could not see. Then they started to climb the stairs again. Boom. They seemed to have reached the top. Malfoy knocked on the trapdoor twice, then pushed it away. Attention, we have arrived in the cellar. Malfoy whispered to Hermione. Come up. Malfoy climbed up first, then extended her hand to Hermione and pulled her up too. The cellar was filled with chairs and tables, and the floor was covered with a thick layer of ash, so that the trapdoor almost merged with the floor. It would be hard to imagine that there would be a door if it was not seen with your own eyes. So how do we get out now? Hermione asked. I think we will be treated as thieves now. You don't have to worry about that. Malfoy said. He walked directly to the stairs, ready to walk out in a fair manner. I think you are crazy. Hermione helped her forward. She had expected Slytherin and Gryffindor to be deducted for 20 or even 50 at the same time. I'm just an accomplice, this guy should deduct more. Just as Hermione was thinking about it, suddenly came a burst of exclamation. Oh, little Draco, how did you come here? A woman's voice came. No wonder he is so familiar here. Hermione thought. Come out and relax on Halloween, Aunt Ambrosia. It turned out to be little Malfoy. Thanks to your idea last time, we made a lot of money. The voice of a middle-aged man passed over. But you are just staying in this store, I remember you are only in the first grade, you got caught but you want to deduct points, right, said Ambrosio, this man is the owner of the Duke of Honey. People in other shops are not as good as us. Of course, I secretly ran out this time, and there is a tow oil bottle around me. Malfoy said. Let me see, oh, it's very romantic to bring my little girlfriend over here on Halloween. We won't let you down here. We happen to have another batch of fresh goods today. Would you like to try it? Ambrosius issued hearty laughter. Apparently saw Hermione behind Malfoy. I'm not his girlfriend. Hermione emphasized word by word, with a light tone, but also very firm. I understand, what young people are popularly calling you by the name, this name is too earthy, we cannot keep up with the trend. Obviously the boss did not listen to her explanation. On Halloween, the two came to Hogsmeade in violation of school rules. It doesn't matter who deceived them. Okay, don't talk anymore, let us take a look around. Malfoy looked at Hermione's increasingly cold face and decisively interrupted the conversation. Then you have to take a look at my new goods, these things are really unlucky, if you didn't make a big profit last time, you can't buy them. Ambrosius said. Said that it was taken with a visit, in fact, the location of the Duke of Honey is not much. A glance is enough to get a panoramic view. However, the densely packed shelves in the store are filled with all kinds of sweets enough to make people dizzy. Large pieces of creamy peanut candy, pieces of shimmering pink coconut sorbet, neatly arranged hundreds of various types of chocolate, a large bucket of multi-flavored beans, a bucket of ZZB candy, logo floating in sherbet drinks in the air, etc. Along the other wall are various candies with special effects. Blowing treasure super bubble gum, it can fill the whole room with bluebell flower colored bubbles that won't be destroyed for a few days, bizarre fragmented hairy mints, small black pepper naughty boy, for your friends spit fire out of your nose, ice mouse, hear your teeth fighting and creaking, cream mints shaped like toads, really beat in the stomach, crunchy sugar quill pen and explosive candy. Hermione was almost dazzled by these sweets, and the sweets in the Muggle world did not look so wonderful. I can't be satisfied just looking at your stomach. Then Ambrosio passed the nourishing bee candy to the two. Try it, it tastes good. Yes, but we haven't paid yet, Hermione said. Little Draco had already paid, didn't he? Hermione threw a questioning look at Malfoy. Next, wait for me to tell you later, Malfoy said. All right. Hermione slowly reached out and took the candy. Facts prove once again, never underestimate the temptation of candy to women. Even for humans, the nature of sugar addiction has already been etched into genes. How do you feel better? Malfoy asked, after destroying a Zizi bee candy. Hermione nodded gently. How about taking some back to school? Malfoy asked. I can't eat so much. Hermione pouted. Don't you bring some to your two friends. The two of them are not my friends. Mentioned that Hermione suddenly looked excited again. I'm not angry yet. Let's bet that today you will attend the Halloween party as usual, and they will definitely apologize to you. Really? Hermione asked subconsciously. Look, you still can't bear these two friends. Hermione's face stiffened. Mumbled, again my words. Eventually, this bet could not be closed, because Hermione seemed to have believed Malfoy said, Gryffindor's courage should include a brave recognition of mistakes, such as your apology to me at the time. If you take the candy again, they may drop their chin directly. Malfoy continued. Hermione laughed loudly, seeming to think of the expression Harry and Ron should have. Then I will trust you for a while. She seemed to realize that something was wrong, and she quickly returned to her normal expression. But the glorious eyes still betrayed her happily now. Oh, it's not early, I think we can prepare to go back. Malfoy looked out the window and said suddenly. The sun seems to be setting down. What? Hermione also looked out the window, suddenly panicking. Don't worry, I think we have enough time. Everyone is celebrating the festival, and we won't pay attention to how many people are missing. Malfoy said while taking several types from the counter and the wooden barrel placed on the ground. The candy was put in his hand and handed to the boss. Do you want to get more of this taste? Malfoy said, pointing at the hairy mint. Well, I think my parents should also like it. Hermione nodded subconsciously. No, we really should go. If we are found, we will all be deducted. Now Hermione seems to be back to the school bully who remembers the school rules and regulations. Isn't it just abandoning oneself after breaking a knot? Malfoy smiled. Okay, let's go. He took the candy packed by the boss and handed it to Hermione. I wish you a prosperous business and see you next time, boss. Malfoy said goodbye to the boss. Thank you so much for the hospitality today. Hermione did not forget to bow to the Ambrose couple. Be careful on the road. The road is not that good. Of course. Malfoy replied. Then he darted into the cellar, and Hermione followed him closely. After, it is the same way to return. I didn't have time to ask you, how are you so familiar with the shopkeeper? Hermione pulled La Malfoy's sleeve in the dark environment where he couldn't see his fingers. When I came here to play, I gave him some tips for doing business in the Muggle world. What's the name? Right? Hunger Marketing, it seems to have made a lot of money, so I didn't ask for money. How old were you back then? Sometimes it is obviously not possible to measure a person's intelligence by age. Malfoy pointed to his head, although Hermione, who was black and light, was not necessarily visible. Why didn't you guys go to Ravenclaw? Hermione was obviously puzzled. Are you really thinking that I am Ravenclaw? Maybe our relationship could be closer. Malfoy said frivolously. What are you talking about suddenly? Hermione blushed, but she couldn't see in the dark. Just kidding. But a soft joke, but touched Hermione's heart. He would be like a Ravenclaw. Hermione patted his face gently. Has to say that the last encounter with this one made Hermione greatly changed Malfoy. UU reading www.uukansha.com even made her more reflective of the mistakes they made when they first met. By the way, he was determined to make Harry and Ron apologize to him. What am I thinking about? Hermione tried to free herself from imagination. Okay, I think we are going back to school soon. I felt the terrain gradually calming down. Malfoy said to Hermione. Walked for a while, the two felt a glimmer of light into their eyes, and the exit of the One-Eyed Witch was coming. Malfoy went out first, looked around a few times, and made sure that no one was there before letting Hermione get out of the door. The party is about to begin. It is estimated that Ron and Harry are looking for you to apologize to you. Let's go. Today, thank you very much today. Hermione said softly. A trifle. Malfoy said. This is a solution to the troll event. Looking at the back of Hermione turning away, Malfoy breathed a sigh of relief. The next development should be a reconciliation of three people, and then Hermione's favor for herself has risen. It has disappeared too long, and it is time to go back as soon as possible. Malfoy was thinking about going to the Slytherin lounge first, and then going to the dinner. When he turned around and was about to lift his legs, he suddenly caught a pair of cold eyes. It's difficult to do this time. Malfoy suddenly felt the slow maliciousness brought to him by the world. In front of Malfoy's eyes, a girl was holding her arms across her chest while looking at him with a sneer. UU Reading is welcome to readers. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all at UU. For mobile phone users, please read. Chapter 13, Monster. I remember someone was going to the library to pursue what knowledge, wisdom, and power? Why stay here now? Pansy said strangely. Oh, I know. Malfoy just wanted to speak again and was interrupted by Pansy's self-talk. When you told a story, a supporting character said a sentence, every woman is a book, right? It seems that you have turned over the mud. Hermione, right. Pansy wanted to say a few words that were insulting, but somehow stopped still. Pansy. Draco, you are really disgusting. Pansy ignored him and turned away, but her shoulders shook slightly to reveal her mood, and soon Pansy disappeared into Malfoy's eyes. This time it really looks like a joke. Malfoy couldn't help thinking. Wait for her to calm down and explain to her. Sid thought about what to say to Pansy. Malfoy also accelerated his pace towards the restaurant. After a few minutes, Malfoy stepped into the restaurant. A sweet roasted pumpkin scented into his nose. 1,000 bats fluttered vigorously on the walls and ceiling, and there were also 1,000 low clouds that hovered around the dining table, making the candles in the pumpkin belly flutter. The delicious food suddenly appeared on the golden plate, just like the banquet at the school. The layout is really good. Malfoy looked at the layout of the restaurant. Glanced around. Malfoy did not see Pansy, but saw Hermione. Harry and Ron were talking happily at the table. Ron and Harry seemed very excited, still holding candy from the Duke of Honey. Hermione, you are so cool. Ron said. My brother always refuses to let me go. I know they always have a way to steal it. But they don't take me with me. Incidentally, they also complained about Fred and George. Harry also echoed a few times. Feeling Malfoy's sight, Hermione secretly greeted him with an OK gesture, indicating that this has been completely resolved, and smirked with pride. Your friendship boat set sail again, but my great ship is sinking. Malfoy couldn't help but think of his current situation when he looked at the smiling trio and Hermione's smile. Where did it go? Malfoy always felt like he had overlooked something. Little girl should not miss these foods. Malfoy was picking up a pumpkin pie and was about to fill his stomach. Professor Quirrell suddenly rushed into the dining room. His big scarf was crooked on his head and his face was full of fright. Everyone stared at him, only to see him walk to Professor Dumbledore's chair, leaning on the table and leaning against the table, panting and saying, "The monster in the underground classroom thought you should know." Finished, he planted his head on the floor and passed out. Damn it! Malfoy suddenly realized something, cursed, and immediately got up and rushed out of the restaurant. He finally knew what he had overlooked. The restaurant suddenly became a mess. Professor Dumbledore had to make a few harsh fireworks explode on the head of his wand before everyone was quiet. "Senior Commander," he said in a low voice, "immediately lead the students of your college to the dormitory. Percy is naturally familiar. Come with me. Don't get away, first grader. As long as you follow my orders, you don't have to be afraid of any monsters. Well, follow me closely. Open, the first grader is going to pass. Please forgive me, I'm the leader." "How can a monster get in?" Harry asked as they went up the stairs. "Don't ask me, the monsters should all be stupid," said Ron. "Maybe Pippi put it in to add some fun to Halloween. What is he running out for now?" Only Hermione noticed that Draco's reaction seemed a bit wrong. "Pansy, where are you?" "Pansy." The corridor was quiet, only Malfoy's cry echoed in it. Malfoy clenched his fists tightly, exposing his inner tension. He thought he was a butterfly inciting wings to change the course, but he didn't expect that maybe he was just paint, poured into the river of time, but was diluted by one branch after another, so that it lost its effect. Pansy shouldn't be in the women's toilet now, because those two people are now staying well in the restaurant. Malfoy's thoughts spun quickly. Then start with the strong first. Find the monster and solve it as soon as possible. Malfoy has full confidence in his current strength. Here. Malfoy suddenly smelled a stench, a smell of smelly socks mixed with public toilets that had never been cleaned. He traced along with the smell. "I found you." At the end of a passage on the left, a behemoth was walking away from him. The low mumble and the sound of huge feet dragging on the ground made people unable to notice him. Malfoy was breathing a sigh of relief, and Yu Guang swept away, and his heart hung up again. He saw two legs sticking out under the statue of the soldier beside the corridor, and seemed to be shaking. Fluorescent flash. You must first draw the monster's attention. The plan was very successful. The monster was turned around by the light source, and the scene was terrifying. It is 12 feet tall, its skin is dull, and it is as gray as granite, and its large and stupid body is like a huge pile of mud, with a small cocoa head on top. Its short legs are as thick as stumps, and underneath are flat, thick, cocooning feet. The smell from it was disgusting. It was holding a thick wooden stick in his hand, and because of its long arm, the wooden stick was dragging on the ground. Malfoy walked slowly towards the monster. Suddenly, he raised his wand. Powder broken bones. A deep red light shot from Malfoy's wand, flying straight towards the monster. The seemingly bloated monster has extraordinary sensitivity and intuition, a subconscious action. The monster turns the wooden stick in his hand into a scapegoat. A pile of wood chips slowly slipped from the giant's hand. "I'm lucky." Malfoy didn't forget to laugh at himself, but he wasn't idle. All petrified. Another curse flew to the monster. This time the monster did not continue the luck of the last time. Immobilized immediately. Only one thick nostril was venting. Leave the rest to the professors to solve it. Malfoy thought, then gradually walked behind the statue. "Pansy, are you okay?" Malfoy asked in a low voice. However, no response was received. Malfoy moved closer. Looked down, Malfoy was startled. The girl in front of him is not Pansy, and looks a year or two older than Malfoy. Black hair and black eyes, long hair shawl, beautiful appearance. As a result of being scared by the monster, it seemed a little panicked and even more touching. Compatriots in a different world. Malfoy quickly recovered. "I think it's all right." Malfoy comforted softly. "The professors will come soon." Malfoy continued. Even if it wasn't Pansy, he couldn't leave a woman who had been scared too much by a monster before. This was not a gentleman's behavior. Moreover, the girl reminded him of his hometown. "Thank you," the girl said softly. "My name is Chujang, you are the first grade Draco, right? I often hear your rumors in our college, and it really deserves its reputation," and he easily subdued the monster. Chujang's face was a little red. It was a little embarrassed to be saved by a younger student than myself. "Carving insects, how to hang teeth." Malfoy suddenly said a Chinese idiom in his mouth. Autumn Zhang looked at Malfoy in surprise. "Do you know Chinese?" "Of course, I admire Chinese culture most." Malfoy nodded. Chujang seemed a little excited. It was enough to meet someone in a foreign country who knew his mother tongue. Some slight strangeness and alienation suddenly disappeared. Chatted for a while, waiting for the arrival of the professors, during which Malfoy threw out a few short paragraphs in Chinese, causing Chujang to cover his mouth and chuckled. "You look more interesting than rumors." Chujang praised, and then added a sentence in his heart, "It's also more handsome." Hee hee. Malfoy laughed a few times, apparently remembering the scene where Pansy had always said he was boring. "Can you help me get up?" Chujang asked softly. "Very happy." Malfoy bent down and stretched out his hand, gently holding Chujang's soft little hand. Slightly upward, the arm pulled Chujang from the ground. Yet, it may have been sitting on the ground for a long time. After Malfoy released his hand, Chujang did not stand firm, leaning on Malfoy's shoulder again. Seeing that he was too close to the male, Chujang exclaimed, his face covered with blush. But Malfoy was watching the nose and eyes, staring at the empty aisle without squinting. "Restore as before." Malfoy then read a spell on Chujang's calf. "How are you feeling?" "It's much better now." Chujang nodded and slowly released Malfoy. "The flushing just now was visible on my face, I wonder if it was because of shyness or something else." At this moment, Malfoy heard several hurried footsteps in the hallway. "Professor, just now I saw him going here." A familiar voice came. "Will he be all right?" "Right." Another voice, familiar. "Malfoy." "Child, calm down, he will be fine." Professor McGonagall comforted the little girl beside him. Several people were getting closer. Professor McGonagall was at the forefront, Snape followed, and finally Kylo walked in a hurry, with two girls beside Professor McGonagall. "Mr. Draco, I think you need to give me an explanation." Professor McGonagall pushed his glasses, his voice was cold without emotion. Snape approached the monster and looked at it, then gave a comment, "Perfect petrified mantra, worthy of my students." This is obviously beginning to protect him. As soon as Kylo saw the troll, he yelled in fear, and fell to the ground, clutching his forehead and trembling. "Professor, I just solved a giant monster in the corridor. Is there any explanation needed?" Malfoy said lightly. "You reading www.uukaungshu.com. Her classmate Hermione didn't tell me that. She said she only saw you running from the restaurant to here." Professor McGonagall's tone was still cold. "It's too fast to dismantle the platform." Malfoy collapsed a little, because at the moment Yu Guang also saw Panzijhan with the red eyes, looking at him worriedly. "I think I can already guess where the plot is going, so I said I am the one who needs to be saved." Malfoy smiled helplessly. "Well, Professor, I'm wrong." Malfoy lowered his head to apologize. Slytherin Buckles 10. Professor McGonagall imposed his own punishment. But for the sake of classmates breaking the rules. Then Professor McGonagall touched Pansy's head. And one person also fought against the monster. It seems to have helped a classmate. Professor McGonagall glanced at Chu Jong and said, his tone eased. Slytheringa is 20, not an example. Malfoy breathed a sigh of relief, and suddenly felt that the old woman became cute. Well, the students are enjoying the Halloween dinner, and you should go back as soon as possible. In addition, I will report to Professor Dumbledore on this matter. Professor McGonagall finally said such a sentence and turned away. As for the monster, Snape continued to deal with it. The next moment was the most difficult time for Malfoy. Who is this woman? After Professor McGonagall left, Pansy pointed at Chu Jong and stared at Malfoy. Obviously, after worrying about it, the teacher should be convicted. It's a headache. Malfoy caressed his forehead, obviously thinking about how to answer this little vinegar jar. UU Reading is welcome to readers. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all at UU. For mobile phone users, please read. Chapter 14, Cause and Effect. Pansy's mood is very bad, perhaps it is very bad, because Malfoy tricked her into dating other girls. She is still the most muddy species she despised. It was so bad that she was not in a mood to go to the Halloween dinner. A man was sulking in Slytherin's female bed. At the wooden table, she took a quill pen as a vent, and the feather on the pen was almost struck. Finished. Boom boom. There was a sudden knock on the door outside the door. I won't accept an apology so easily. Pansy thought to himself, but still reluctantly got up from the chair in front of the table, and by the way turned his cold expression into a cold expression. This time it's a matter of principle, it's not so easy to fool me. Pansy had already thought many thoughts in a moment. She seems to forget that boys can't sleep in women. After opening the door, Pansy saw a pair of front teeth. Is this a demonstration? The expected apology did not wait. Instead, she waited for the mud type she hated most, and Pansy's face was even colder. The words mud were just about to be exported. He was interrupted by Hermione's words. Duh, Draco is going to deal with you alone to deal with the monster. Hermione's face was full of anxiety, and her breathing was still a little difficult. Obviously, she ran over in a hurry. What does that have to do with me? Pansy was startled, but said with a supportless expression. That's a monster. Hermione gestured with her hand. It's infinitely powerful, stupid, and grumpy. First-year students can't deal with it. I just noticed you were not in the restaurant, and Draco's face wasn't very good. Hermione said with a breath. Professor Kylo then rushed in and said that he found a monster. Malfoy changed his face as soon as he heard it, and rushed out immediately. How do you know he is looking for me? Pansy's tone has already been a little panic, and he has believed 8 points under his heart, but he still tries to restrain himself. You. Hermione was a little speechless. Isn't it because of you two of his stupid men? I'm going to see Professor McGonagall, you are waiting here. Hermione was obviously very dissatisfied with Pansy's response. Talking vigorously, he went outside. Maybe he just wanted to get the limelight. Pansy's tone became weaker and weaker, as if he had made up his mind. He still raised his legs to keep up with Hermione. This is definitely a shame. Pansy thought bitterly behind Hermione. It's all on your account, Malfoy, so don't be okay. But in the end, there was still concern about gaining the upper hand, and there was a hint of sweetness in these concerns. He took such a big risk for me. I will forgive him if he is fine. The subsequent plot naturally was that the two found Professor McGonagall for help, but in reverse, Hermione kept calm and gave directions to several professors. When Pansy came to the hall, he was infected by everyone's fear. The sight of Malfoy's head might be smashed by the monster. Her eyes turned red. Afterwards, with a bit of crying, Professor McGonagall spent a lot of thought to comfort her. But now I see that the Lord is doing a good job, and even hook up with a girl. It looks like this girl's figure is better than herself. Pansy felt that his feelings had fed the dog. Thank you for your help. It seemed that the atmosphere at the scene was a bit wrong. Chujong hurriedly thanked Malfoy and turned away. Followed by a silence. Be the first to be strong. Malfoy decisively analyzed the current situation and walked over to touch Pansy's head and said, "You are fine. In fact, after getting along for a long time, people will understand each other better." After several years of getting along, Malfoy has basically understood Pansy's character. 2 words, Ao Chiao. Don't look at the usual poisonous tongue. In fact, the anger quickly dissipates quickly. UU reading www.uukangsha.com. Looking at Hermione, you may not see it at ordinary times. You are actually the most proud when you are in the field you are good at. You can't allow any doubts. Didn't the previous conflict with Harry Ron stem from this? I haven't forgiven you, you let me go. Pansy whispered. Pansy only felt that the current situation between the two seemed to be a bit reversed, and it was she who came to rescue Malfoy, but now she was comforted, and she decided to give him a small lesson. Malfoy felt a sudden pain in his shoulder and couldn't help but take a breath. The hand also loosened at the same time. This bite is even a punishment, and it spares you when you take a risk for me. Pansy showed off her white teeth with pride. I really doubt that you are the talent of Animagus. If there is, it must be a dog. Malfoy complained while rubbing his shoulders. Pansy glared again. Okay, I won't say it anymore. Malfoy spread his hand and said that he stopped the topic. Let's go back to the restaurant. Malfoy then suggested. The smell here is too bad. Pansy nodded gently. This is the end of the monster event. But Malfoy still had a headache. Because when he arrived at the restaurant, he also endured Pansy's endless torture. Forgiveness does not mean asking nothing. So at the end of the banquet, Malfoy finally breathed a sigh of relief, and what happened today was too much for him. Tao Jiao tired. Malfoy returned to the bedroom and fell asleep quickly on the bed. This is the last consciousness in his head. UU Reading is welcome to readers. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all at UU. For mobile phone users, please read. Chapter 15, The days passed quickly, and after entering November, the weather became very cold. The mountains around the school were gray and covered with ice and snow, and the lake was cold and hard like hardened steel. Every morning, there is frost on the ground. Malfoy at the table couldn't help but yawn. Yesterday he read a book late, because he thought that today is the Quidditch game and the whole school was not on holiday, so he stayed a little late. But unexpectedly, he was forcibly pulled from bed by Pansy this morning. First, why can girls go to men's dormitory at will? Second, why is everyone so enthusiastic about this game? Malfoy, with 2 huge dark circles, mechanically repeated the action and stuffed the bread into his mouth in. Heart cannot help but defamation. Today is the most crucial day. If we lose, Gryffindor will really catch up with us. Pansy was analyzing the situation of Quidditch and the impact on the Academy Cup next to Malfoy. In any case, Dumbledore will give this year's College Cup to the Lions College in order to give Harry a reputation. Malfoy knew it, but he would not say it. Not to mention that others have the protagonist aura. The golden thief flew directly into his mouth. How can he still win here? These words are naturally impossible to say to Pansy. Malfoy can only give a few perfunctory words. On the small bodies of Gryffindor, our team can definitely crush them, so don't worry about it. By the way, I heard that the Savior or Gryffindor's Seeker. What other secret weapon did their captain say? What can the first grade do? Will it cheat? Pansy said while taking 2 pieces the bread spread jam in the middle. Miss, when it comes to cheating, the average person will first think of our college. Malfoy wanted to laugh a little. Speaking of Quidditch, Slytherin cheating is not a big deal, but there are a lot of small moves, so that many people do not have a good impression of their team. You are almost there. Pansy gave Malfoy the look that he expected. Squeeze their arrogance hard. I'm not interested in this one, I won't be interested. I won't go to watch the game if you call me today. Malfoy naturally refused. I'm not interested. That's because you're actually very powerful, right? Pansy seemed to catch the loophole in Malfoy's words. Don't talk while eating. Malfoy tucked a piece of bread into Pansy's mouth, and then Pansy could only make a slight whine, staring at Malfoy bitterly. Do you want to murder me? The piece of bread seemed a bit big, and Pansy swallowed it halfway before it was completely resolved, and drank a big sip of honey tea. You are asking me to participate in those activities is also murdering me. You know. Time is life. Pansy said strangely. Don't bother me, what happened to my murder? Today you are willing to go, and you are not willing to go. Go everywhere. Malfoy waved his hand. It's time to collect the Dark Lord's data. Malfoy tried to convince himself to make himself feel that today's activities are meaningful. It's almost the same. Pansy raised his head and seemed to declare his victory again. At 11 o'clock, it seemed that all the teachers and students of the school came to the stands around the Quidditch stadium. Many students also brought binoculars. The seat was almost halfway up, but sometimes it was still difficult to see the game. Due to the high enthusiasm of Pansy, Malfoy and her came too early, and the seat position is also considered to be front, but for this kind of game, the difference between the front and rear seats is actually not big. Oops. Pansy slapped his forehead. I forgot to bring my telescope. Then I stared at Malfoy, expecting him to have a solution. Don't look at me, why don't I try it with a flying charm? Go to hell. Malfoy was joking, and it was too far from the bedroom. The flying mantra is also limited in distance, and Dumbledore's shot may be successful. Actually, I can't see clearly, and I'll be lighter. Malfoy thought. Close your eyes. Malfoy said softly, still ready to satisfy Pansy's wishes. Pansy obediently followed suit. It's not arrogant at all when asking for people. Malfoy couldn't help laughing. The horizon is broad. Malfoy chanted the spell softly. As a wizard who pursues self-improvement, self-made magic spells can be said to be a dividing point. In a sense, only after you create or improve a magic spell can you really count as a room in the magic field, otherwise you can only pick up the predecessor teeth wisdom. Professor Lockhart, who will be coaching next year, is mediocre, but his improved one forget-all still relies on the magic world. Innovation is the first productive force. Malfoy's thoughts drifted away again. The first self-made curse was actually used in such a place. Malfoy didn't know whether to cry or laugh. As far as human nature is concerned, being brave and aggressive has long been deeply entrenched in genes. Of course, Malfoy also wants to create a killing spell similar to Shen Feng Wu Ying, but it seems that it has been counterproductive. The auxiliary ones are also good. Malfoy could only comfort himself. I can open my eyes. Now I finally understand the reason why you ran to the library in one day. Pansy looked at the center of the stadium and felt like he was listening to the captain's training around the Slytherin players, any small movements of the Slytherin players. She couldn't escape her eyes, and she even saw the spitting stars spilled when Flint was talking. Sloppy. Pansy commented. I still want to hear what they are saying. I really can't do this. Malfoy shrugged helplessly. It's really useless. Pansy pouted. Hey, are you across bridge? Don't be noisy, the game is about to start. Sure enough, no matter which world, female fans are unreasonable. Malfoy felt a little hurt. The game is about to start. Mrs. Huochi stands as the referee in the center of the court, holding her flying broom in hand, waiting for the players on both sides. The stands outside the stadium were full of people, some people were pulling banners, and some people were shaking their own small flags. Some people are quietly focused on the teammates of the two sides looking through the telescope. Some people are distracted. That's right, Malfoy. He looked around when everyone else was looking forward to the game. Obsidian Professor, the beloved, is dead and will continue to be a nanny to her son. Soon Malfoy saw Snape, still with a cold look, but his eyes swept from time to time to this Harry's eyes moved, and soon Malfoy saw Professor Kylo, who was wearing a headscarf. This is the real Lucky E, you can meet the Dark Lord in the wild, Malfoy sighed. However, boss only takes you as cannon fodder. Moving his gaze again, he scanned the highest row, and he saw Ron and Hermione sitting together, beside him, Simone Neville and others, who were pulling a banner made of bed sheet, which said Porter must victory, a lion symbolizing Gryffindor is drawn below, and Hermione chants softly to make the paint on the banner flash different colors. The players on both sides gradually moved closer to the center, and Mrs. Huochi raised her volume, "Listen, I hope everyone will participate in the game fairly and honestly." Mrs. Huochi's eyes stayed on the captain of the Slytherin team when she spoke. Obviously, he was particularly warned. "Please ride a flying broom." Both team members mounted their brooms. Madame Huochi blew her silver whistle. 15 raised the flying broom and lifted high into the sky. The game started. Equipment crushing, how to play this. Malfoy has good eyesight, and can see the situation on the field without applying magic. But he couldn't help shaking his head when he saw the speed of the crowd when he took off. No wonder the team is going to pull sponsors the next year, the gap is too big. I saw Harry rushed into the sky with a broom. Slytherin and Fendo players are clearly behind him. You will come and go in the subsequent games, Malfoy just feels boring. The existence of the Golden Snitch is enough to completely destroy the gameplay of this kind of game. The game that almost puts the victory and defeat of the game on one person is really not worth watching. Whoever goes up to take a ghost ball to get 200 or 300 points to strike this rule. Malfoy thought maliciously. The Gryffindor goalkeeper would made a beautiful move and broke the ball. Now it is the Gryffindor team who takes the ball. It is Gryffindor chaser Katie Bell who is above the court. Rushing around swiftly around Flint. Oops, it must have hurt. Lee Jordan's voice echoed loudly over the court. Malfoy was sad only for the professionalism of this event. As an explanation, how can there be such obvious bias towards the two teams? Gryffindor is beautiful and perfect as soon as he gets the ball. Slytherin has nothing. This reminded Malfoy of a sentence from the previous life, "Long live Italy." The narrator who spoke this sentence was also sprayed. Then the game continued. Flint fouled, he slammed Harry a bit and gave Gryffindor a free kick. But it seems that they did not seize this opportunity. Harry seemed to feel something wrong with his broom at the moment. He couldn't command it at all. The flying broom turns left and right in the air, shaking violently from time to time, almost falling him from above. "Ron, you see, Harry's broom is a bit abnormal." Hermione seemed to have discovered the problem first. Harry's broom twitched and twisted frantically all the way, slowly and increasingly moving Harry away from the field. "Harry's talent is as strong as his dad, don't worry," Hagrid muttered. Because of his pile of magical creatures, he had to come a little late. "This must be a Gryffindor strategy, you know, impossible," Hagrid yelled suddenly. All the people in the stands were pointing up at Harry at the moment. His flying broom started tossing and rolling, and Harry could only barely support it. Suddenly, the flying broom whirled again, and Harry was thrown off by it. He now grasps the broomstick with only one hand and hangs in the air. Is there something wrong with the broomstick when Flint hit him just now? Simo whispered. That's the latest Lightwheel 2000. Ron's voice shuddered. It must be black magic. Hermione gave her inference, saying that she had taken a telescope that had captured Hagrid, but instead of looking at the stadium, she looked at the crowd on the stands. Soon she seemed to find her goal and quickly left the small group of Gryffindor. Little girl is about to move. Malfoy watched Hermione struggle through the crowd, and came to the stand where Snape was. It's a pity to find the wrong person. Malfoy touched his nose to sit and watch the show. I'm worried about IQ. Malfoy stared at Kylo, who was interrupted by Hermione unintentionally, and couldn't help but laugh. How big did he dare to solve Harry in the eyes of everyone? Dumbledore was not a vegetarian, even if there was no Hermione. It was impossible for Old Den to make Harry accidental. The effect of the evil spell ceased, and Harry's broom returned to normal. Suddenly there was a wave of cheers from the stands, and people got up and clapped their hands. Harry spit out the golden thief in his mouth, waved his broom, and said, "I caught the thief." Lee Jordan announced the result of the game aloud, 170 points to 60, UU reading www.uukunsha.com. Gryffindor won the game. Damn it! Pansy said bitterly. So you are pinching my leg, Missy. Malfoy only felt a tingling in his thigh, and Pansy pinched him fiercely, as if venting. As for who pinched the leg, it was not Pansy was concerned. No longer sitting with female fans. Malfoy secretly said to himself. Mr. Snape, who burned his robe for 2 seconds, finally mourned for 2 seconds. Malfoy finally glanced silently at the professor who had been severely pitted by Hermione. Let's go. Pansy stood up vigorously, just stepped back and was thrown back into his chair. The horizon is the same as before. Malfoy couldn't help but smile. Apparently Pansy, who didn't dispel the spell, couldn't notice his feet. Get up. Malfoy reached out and prepared to lift Pansy and take her away. But she seemed to be thinking about something with her head down. Today they just won by chance, right? Pansy said, suddenly looking at Malfoy. Absolutely a fluke. Malfoy could only follow her. We will definitely win next year, right? Of course. Malfoy comforted. You will definitely help us get revenge, right? Yes, yes, right. As soon as he spoke, Malfoy felt like he was being put together. Very good, I'm in a much better mood now. Pansy's face suddenly showed a smile, like a long cloud of rain casting a ray of sunlight. Let's go. Pansy said happily. It seemed that the loss of the game had no effect on her. Malfoy. UU Reading is welcome to readers. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all at UU. For mobile phone users, please read. Chapter 16, Gap Christmas is Coming. _Suim. One morning in mid-December, Hogwarts School woke up and found several feet of snow covering the ground, and the lake was covered with hard ice. Weasley's twin brothers were punished because they enchanted several snowballs, let them chase Kylo everywhere, and smashed behind his headscarf. Malfoy was somewhat shocked when he heard the news. In a sense, it was considered to be Lord Voldemort's face. No wonder the last of the two brothers lost one ear, and one hung directly. It was not fun to offend the devil. Of course, this is just Malfoy's joke-like idea. In fact, in Voldemort's eyes, he did not submit to him. Of course, everyone should greet death, or include those who hindered his goal. Professor Snape is a good example, not because the identity of the undercover was revealed, but only to change the ownership of the old wand. Voldemort can slay a powerful player who is at least apparently capable. Thinking about it, Malfoy looked up out the window. Several owls flew through the blizzard sky to deliver mail, and experienced many hardships. They must restore their physical strength under Hagrid's care before they can continue to take off. Christmas is approaching, the owl is too busy to deal with too many letters of greetings. Malfoy also received a letter from his family that Narcissa wanted him to go home for Christmas. Compared to going home, Malfoy actually found the school's collection more tempting. But let's go back, there is still a place to go. Malfoy thought of a plan he had already made. Fingers crossed the pages of the book, and Malfoy sitting in a corner flipped through an old book. The yellowed paper gave the illusion that it would turn into powder when touched. District not only has black magic, but also black history. He closed the book gently, the gold stamped title on the cover of the book had already peeled off, and some big characters of black magic history that you didn't know were vaguely visible. Silently digesting the huge amount of information in the book, Malfoy suddenly heard the voice of a middle-aged woman. "What are you looking for, kid?" This is the voice of Mrs. Pings, who manages the area. Nothing, this is a boy's voice. Through the gap between the bookshelves, Malfoy saw Harry looking away, now being questioned by Mrs. Pins. "Then you'd better go out." "Let's go out," Mrs. Pings ordered. Harry glanced helplessly through the gap between the bookshelves, and he saw Malfoy. However, it is clear that the two have permission and one does not, and the treatment is completely different. Harry hated why he wasn't smart, and made up a lie, such as coming to find a classmate or the like, but soon realized that he was not in a good relationship with Malfoy. If he was exposed, he might have to buckle the college. Minute. Harry walked out of the library while thinking wildly. He expected Ron or Hermione to find some new clues, but he didn't expect much. Things still need to start from the end of the Quidditch game. Hermione said she saw Snape chanting evil spells at Harry's broom. Harry himself also said that he saw Snape's leg hurt. After contacting the three-headed dog of Hagrid, several of them concluded that Snape was not kind to Harry and seemed to have to steal something very important, so they were bitten. Gag said that he missed his mouth a few times. They learned that these things were related to a man named Nicole May. But it seems that all clues stop here. In Gryffindor's lounge, Hermione buried her head on the dining table, and Ron was bored with his old shamanic chess. Obviously they still got nothing. "I was kicked out by Mrs. Pins," Harry said in frustration. "I suspect that he may be a muggle at all," Hermione moaned weakly. "Otherwise, how could he not be found anywhere? He was not among the great wizards of the 20th century, nor in the list of famous contemporary magicians. In addition, his name was not found in the major discoveries of modern magic and the development of modern witchcraft." Hermione stretched out a finger, counting the information I have checked. "I'm going crazy by him." Hermione grabbed her shaggy hair and made an annoyed expression. "I think Mrs. Pins must know," Harry answered. "But we can't ask." Ron inserted the conversation. "We ask Snape and we will know that it is very unsafe. While I'm away, you have to keep searching." "Okay," said Hermione. "Once something is found, send an owl to tell me. You can also ask your parents if they know Liam," Ron said. "It's safe to ask them." "Very safe because they are both dentists," Hermione said. "I have a suggestion. Why don't we go and ask Malfoy? He is qualified to consult the district," Harry said hesitantly. "Harry, are you crazy? He's a Slytherin. Snape is their dean." Ron clapped the table and stood up to continue. "And I don't think he will tell us, right, hey? Min." Ron turned to look at Hermione. "I don't know." Hermione looked a little unnatural. Apparently she hadn't told them that she actually had a good relationship with Malfoy. "I don't think he looks like a bad guy." "We might have done something wrong in the car," Harry said. "If you are willing to go, go. I don't want to apologize to him." Ron slammed the chess piece the board and made a loud noise. Hermione and Harry glanced at each other, and apparently decided not to continue the topic. "So you ran over and asked me?" Malfoy looked away from the book and looked up at Hermione. You must know who he is, right? Hermione looked at him with a look of expectation. Is this person important to you? Malfoy asked knowingly. Very important. Hermione nodded affirmatively. But I don't think I have an obligation to tell you. Malfoy's voice suddenly froze. If you ask me as a friend in private, I think I will be happy to help you, but your two friends will obviously not be willing to accept my kindness. Don't you think this is unfair to me? Not like that, Harry suggested to ask you. Hermione explained. So what about others? Ron disagrees, he seems to have a holiday with you, and Harry can't stick to it. Hermione's voice subsided. Then I don't think I'm busy, maybe they will know later that I told you that I might not believe it. Malfoy stared at Hermione quietly. No, it's not like that. Hermione shook her head and wanted to deny it. Well, I will tell you now, Nicole May, the only maker of the magic stone known, the greatest alchemist, and Dumbledore's friend, are these enough? Are you satisfied? Marfou said, then, Miss Grandy, this is the district, I think you can leave as soon as possible. Why did this happen? Looking at Malfoy's indifferent eyes, Hermione's heart was inexplicably sour. The clues she had just heard did not make her happy. She walked out of the library. The slightly cold wind did not make her feel cold, because at this moment her heart was colder. She began to examine the friendship between her and the three people, but it was like a mess. Looking at Hermione's back, Malfoy took a breath. This friendship should not have existed. Malfoy on the train just wanted to try to change history, but it also failed. He then decided that the well water would not violate the river, but was moved by Hermione's courage to apologize. Encountered again in the library, looking at the sad Hermione, he couldn't bear it, comforted her, and took her to Hogsmeade secretly. However, the conflicts between colleges and friends are still between them, and no one is spared once they break out. Let's face it, sooner or later, then come to an end soon. Malfoy knew very well that even if he didn't take the initiative this time, similar things would definitely happen in the future. If the friendship lasts long, it's both a hurdle that must be faced. It's up to you to decide whether the friendship is over or new. Malfoy thought of it. I will do the wicked this time. Hermione returned blankly to Gryffindor's lounge, and the temperature in the fireplace made her feel better. She saw Ron and Harry playing witch's chess happily. I know who Nicole May is. Hermione said quietly. Oh, Harry, your horse was eaten by me. Ron was about to take Harry's horse. The two people who were suddenly playing chess suddenly reacted. What did you say? Do you know who he is? Harry asked in surprise. Hermione, you are so cool. You reading www.uukunsha.com, Ron praised. Hermione still maintains the calm tone. Just now he is the only maker of the magical stone known, the greatest alchemist, Dumbledore's friend. Golden stone. Ron exclaimed. No wonder Snape wants to hit his idea. Everyone wants it? What's that? Harry asked Ron. My twin brothers used to talk about this stone. They said that if they get the gold they will use, they won't come to class again. By the way, they also said that this stone can make elixir, so that people who drink this medicine will never die. That all makes sense, Harry said. Professor Nicole May and Professor Dumbledore are friends. He asked Professor to store the magic stone here for a while. The three-headed dog must be one of the guards. Snape tried to steal it but failed. Take a bite. Hermione, you are a hero. Ron praised Hermione again. Hermione smiled unnaturally. Chapter 17, Christmas. Christmas is near, the whole Hogwarts is filled with a cheerful atmosphere, the students are all a happy expression, the hall looks beautiful and magnificent. The walls are covered with pendant ribbons of holly and mistletoe. There are 12 tall Christmas trees erected everywhere in the room. Some trees are hung with shiny small icicles, and some trees are shining with hundreds of candles. It also adds a bit of festive atmosphere to the school. Unlike many classmates who come home for Christmas, Harry and Ron both signed the list of students who stayed at the school for the holiday brought by Professor McGonagall. The former signing is very normal, while the latter is because the Weasleys are going to Romania visits Charlie. Hey, Harry, did you find that? Since knowing who Nicole May was that day, Hermione seemed a bit wrong. Ron at the table whispered. Yeah. Harry nodded. I actually saw her actually distracted in class today. I saw it too. Ron added. After the lesson, the figure disappeared. What must have happened? Ha tapped the bowl in front of him with a knife and fork, making a crisp noise. We should think of a way. Ron said. Harry nodded affirmatively. As for Malfoy, he also felt something was wrong recently. He felt Pansy hiding from him. Can be explained by illusion once or twice, but it will definitely not be a simple coincidence if the frequency is increased. Except for the time of Malfoy in the library, at other times, such as the dining table and the classroom, Pansy will always sit with him and stick to him, and occasionally Malfoy will also guide her homework after class. By the way, teach her 2 self-defense spells, but these days Malfoy finds that Pansy will almost never come to him. Even after seeing him, he will run away immediately. Like now. Pansy. Malfoy greeted Pansy. Pansy, who was sitting on the lounge chair, stood up like a frightened rabbit. He also packed some East XC behind him, and stumbled out of the lounge without daring to look at him. Is this retribution? Malfoy could only helplessly smile. In the library, Hermione was turning through a large book. After knowing who Nicole May is, she obviously no longer clings to the restricted area, and many areas with normal information can be found. After all, it is much easier to know the target now. No, I want to concentrate, Hermione said to herself. For her, it was impossible to be distracted when studying and studying, but since that day, she found that she always remembered his memory. The disappointment on the train, the apology and acceptance in the library, the trip to Hogsmeade's candy house, and the fear of facing the trolls might add a final indifference. Hermione tried to drive him away from her mind, but couldn't do it. When I was in class, I was distracted when I was doing my homework. Even if I go to the library to read a book, I would still be distracted. When I think of the happy memories before, she will laugh unconsciously, but a happy smile will soon bring a bit of bitterness. Hermione, you have to forget him for a while. Hermione patted her face and said to herself again. Christmas is finally here, the students should stay at school, they should go home. Malfoy also embarked on a journey home. Half a day's time is not short or long, and Malfoy on the train reached his destination after a sleep. After getting off the bus, Malfoy saw Narcissa waiting for him in front of the platform. Oh my God, how come you lost so much weight? Narcissa said exaggeratedly, pinching Malfoy's face as she said. Isn't school stuff bad? I want to tell your dad to let him make recommendations on the board. This is just the illusion of your mother. Malfoy changed the subject. Sir Father did not come. He said that he has something important that can't come. What's more important than our baby, right? Narcissa depreciated Lucius again. Okay, Mother, I don't think we need to stand here anymore. Isn't the weather good? Yes, let's go home quickly. You must be frozen. The fireplace at home must be warmer than the school. Narcissa said again. Malfoy couldn't help but support the amount. Through the Phila network, the two quickly returned to their homes. It has to be said that apart from the unbearable shortcomings of dizziness, this mode of transportation is indeed satisfactory because it is really fast. After enjoying a sumptuous dinner, Malfoy returned to his room. Narcissa lamented that her son had grown up and would not whisper to her mother, although she had never said much about it. Malfoy in the room is not idle, he is worrying about Christmas gifts. Although there is no contact in school, let them order snacks. This is a snack gift for Crabbe and Gower. Troublesome young lady, I don't know where to provoke her again. Malfoy remembered Pansy's performance before, and didn't know what to give, before going to Hogsmeade again to buy one oversized quill pen, because he saw that the feathers on Pansy's quill pen had fallen out, and a bottle of rainbow ink was also included. Finally, Hermione, Malfoy did not know how to deal with it. Alas, help her. Malfoy sighed and wrote a few words on a sticky note, UU reading www.uukunsha.com tied to the owl's feet. After finishing these affairs, Malfoy felt a little sleepy and went to bed. The next day there was a very important thing waiting for him to do. No words for a night. Woke up, Malfoy rubbed his sleepy eyes and came to the Christmas tree beside the living room. Below is a pile of colorful boxes. In addition to the gifts from school friends, there are other relatives who are not familiar with it. How about, did you feel abandoned by me, and did you feel bad? This is a letter from Pansy. Malfoy seemed to see Pansy smirking through the letter. But still give you a Christmas surprise, this is the gloves that Miss Ben has mercilessly woven for you, how about it, is it very grateful to me now? After reading, Malfoy saw a pair of gloves quietly placed in a beautifully packed box, which was not very beautiful, and the needle thread was also exposed in some places. The color matching was not very beautiful, but it was for Malfoy. My heart is warm. I just wanted to give me a surprise, I guess it's a bit embarrassing. Malfoy thought of the behaviors of Pansy before that he couldn't help but want to laugh, but the letter said that he was very generous, but he was still very embarrassed. Anyway, this gift made him feel happy. Then came two chubby gifts. Well, banana-flavored slug lollipops and orange-flavored chicken lollipops. Malfoy felt he should go back and teach them what it means to be all petrochemicals. Finally, a small piece of paper with the words "Thank you." This is the best. Malfoy thought. UU Reading is welcome to readers. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all at UU. For mobile phone users, please read. Chapter 18, Old House Baby, Are You Kidding Me? Narcissa at the table gave an incredible scream. I don't think I did. Malfoy said calmly. I don't agree. How can I still have homework on Christmas, and I have to go so far away? You said, are you arranged by your giant teacher? Narcissa severely patted the table made of mahogany. I must let your father fire him. It's hard to imagine Hogwarts willing to hire a murderer as a teacher. Oh, mother, he is just a janitor now. Malfoy explained slowly. This is just an extracurricular homework in the potion class, which is not mandatory, but shouldn't your son be the best? Any task should be perfectly completed, isn't it? Malfoy added. The teacher in the potion class is Severus Snape, you should also know. Snape. Narcissa said the name once. It seems to have done things with your father, but I still disagree. Narcissa said after thinking about it. Are you willing to leave your mother at Christmas and go by yourself at Christmas? Saying Narcissa seemed to squeeze some tears from her eyes. Malfoy was temporarily speechless. I'm back. A gloomy voice from a middle-aged man suddenly came from the marble fireplace. Mother, I think there is still a father who can accompany you now. Malfoy couldn't help but bring a hint of joy. I really was not there when I should be, I came back when I shouldn't. Compared to Malfoy, Narcissa's tone was very bad. Lucius, the servant of the wind and dust, apparently did not understand the situation, appeared confused, came to the table to take a sip of honey tea, and then Malfoy explained to him. The people of the Malfoy family are not reckless, but they are not lack of courage. Lucius turned and said to Malfoy, of course, Dad supports you. Think back then, me too. Then he showed a nostalgic look and seemed to think of his student days. Enough is enough, I don't know if you are a bit ruined. Narcissa is in a bad mood now, so she treats Lucius, who is about to remember, as a punching bag. Interrupted. Lucius smiled embarrassedly, stopped the conversation, and apparently did not want to argue with Narcissa on the head. In Theseus' words, why do you have a big holiday? After running out of lunch, Malfoy said goodbye to his parents and started today's journey. Before leaving completely, he deliberately went to the Muggle vegetable market, bought a few beef bones, and did not know what to do with it. The villagers of Little Hungerton still refer to this house as Riddle House, although the Riddle family has not lived here for many years. The house is located on a hillside, from which you can see the entire village. Several windows of the house were sealed, the tiles on the roof were incomplete, and the creeper crawled all over the house. Riddle House was originally a very beautiful mansion, or the most spacious and grandest building within a few miles, but now it has become damp, desolate and uninhabited all year round. And today the house ushered in a little guest. He has light blonde hair, holding a black pocket in his hand. Malfoy was walking on the wide road, during which a few good villagers asked him where he was going, and it would be curious to know that any raw face appeared in such a small village. When Malfoy said his destination, every villager who asked him changed his face. Obviously, in their impression, the house had an eerie feeling. The murder case 50 years ago was enough to impress these small villagers. After persuading the fruitless villagers, they shook their heads and left helplessly, very puzzled by the boy's behavior, because no one was willing to approach this gradually desolate house. Apart from Frank, he is the housekeeper and a gardener. The murder case 50 years ago, he was the biggest suspect. He had been on the battlefield, and the villagers suspected that his spirit was a bit abnormal, so he murdered the Riddles. The police also thought that he had a serious suspicion, so he took him back to the police station. Frank denied the accusations, and he stubbornly repeated him over and over again. He was innocent. He said that on the day the Riddles died, the only person he saw near the house was a boy in his teens who didn't know. The boy had dark hair and pale face. No one else in the village had seen such a boy, and the police determined that it was made by Frank out of thin air. But the autopsy report made it impossible for the police to start. The police had never seen a weirder report than this. A group of doctors examined the body and concluded that no one in the Riddle family had been injured by poison, sharp weapons, or pistols, nor were they suffocated or strangled. Actually, the report continued with a noticeably confused tone. The three of the Riddle family looked healthy except for one thing: they all died. The doctors noticed, as if they were determined to find something wrong on the corpse, everyone in the Riddle family had a frightened expression on their faces, but as the police who had already said nothing, who ever heard of three people being scared to death at the same time? Frank was released. What makes people even more amazing is that he actually returned to his cabin in the garden of Riddle House. The new owner of the mansion neither lives here, nor does it use the house. It seems to be doing some taxation articles. The people in the village are unknown. UU reading books www.uukunshu. However, the wealthy homeowner continued to pay Frank to be a gardener. Boom boom. The door of the house was knocked. Frank stood up slowly from the chair in the yard, and limped toward the gate with his walking stick. Maybe it was a dark wound left on the battlefield, or maybe he was old, and his leg was very bad. Handy, can only rely on crutches to help walk. While walking, Frank thought about who would come to this house. It must not be that group of ghosts, they are not so polite. Frank thought to himself. The boys in the village always like to throw stones at the windows of Riddle House. Frank spent a lot of effort to keep the grass flat, but they ran on the bicycle and ran on it. Once or twice, they broke into the old house in order to bet against each other. He believed that these boys tortured him because they, like their parents and grandparents, thought he was a murderer. The door was slowly opened, and the old, Over-the-top door contacted the ground and made an unbearable friction sound. "Oh boy, what's the matter with you here?" Frank opened the door and saw an unfamiliar boy with pale face and light blonde hair, which was different from the feeling of those little ghost heads. He thought the boy was very with temperament. Looking at Malfoy, he seemed to recall the pale, black-haired child of the year. "Sleep, sorry," Malfoy said softly, then raised his wand. "Fallen." A red blaze fired from the tip of the stick and hit Frank. His body slowly fell on the lawn, and then lost consciousness. UU Reading is welcome to readers. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all at UU. For mobile phone users, please read. Chapter 19, Cemetery and Ring. Malfoy bypassed the unconscious Frank and walked slowly into Riddle House. Although it was somewhat run down due to the lack of a master, under Frank's efforts, the grass on the side remained flat and almost indistinguishable. Grass. Malfoy went straight to the largest room. He guessed that there would be a living room. He hoped to find some clues about Voldemort, but the power of time was too strong, and he could not find any trace of magic. He shook the wooden four-corner table and stool at random, hoping to gain something, but still shook his head in disappointment. Then Malfoy walked to the back of the house and stopped by a door almost completely covered by the creeper. Araho Cave opened. With a crunch, the door made a heavy noise and slowly opened. It's as dark as a cave. If it's not that some kitchen utensils are still cluttered, it's hard to believe that this is a kitchen, but there are no other special features, and it is still clueless. Finally he came to the corridor. The large mullioned windows on both sides of the front door slightly penetrated some light, through which he slowly fumbled up the stairs, and the stone steps were covered with a thick layer of ash. On the landing, he turned to the right and walked straight to the top of the hallway. There was a gap in the door. It seems there is no clue here, but it is also expected. Malfoy so comforted to himself. But one day in the future one can still do it with nausea. Then he stepped into the room and seemed to read a few spells. Soon, he returned to the door of the mansion. "Old man, let you sleep and save your life again." Malfoy looked at Frank and cast a Muggle expulsion spell here, and then quickly left. "Oh, Mary is still waiting for me." Frank woke up with a headache, but he suddenly remembered his first love. The flame of love burned in his almost exhausted life, and he stumbled out Riddle House, went to the place he remembered. As for Riddle House, who had been with him for decades, he had already left behind. Innocent old man, stay away from it all. Looking at Frank's back, Malfoy sighed. What happened just now is different, but now it is different. Malfoy cheered up. Riddle's view is very wide. With memories of the terrain just now, Malfoy came to a grassy cemetery, and he could see the black outline of a small church behind a tall yew on the right. On the left is a hill with an exquisite old house on the slope, which is naturally where Malfoy just went. Around the graveyard, there were a few creepy crows from time to time, but it set off a terrifying silence. Malfoy came to stand in front of a tall marble tombstone. "Tom Mavolo Riddle," the strong wind screamed, and he couldn't help but hit a chill. "It seems that I really want to make a guest visit to the school captain today." Obviously, the gloomy atmosphere did not affect Malfoy, and he still laughed at himself. He opened the black pocket and put a few cow bones on the floor. Powder-crushed bones. Malfoy raised his wand, lightly pressed against a few bones, and then turned into a pile of broken foam. Malfoy's wand was another point, and the tombstone was slowly removed. He removed the original mixture of soil and ashes under the tomb, leaving about a third, and then replaced the newly built pile of debris. "Go in. Restore as before." The tombstone closed again slowly. "You're done." Malfoy couldn't help but clap his hands, showing a smile. Went a fast way again, and Malfoy walked towards Great Hungerton. Saw nothing else around, only saw tall bush hedges on both sides, then he turned right towards the path and walked to a gap in the fence. This is a long and narrow dirt road. The bushes and hedges on both sides are taller and denser than those they just passed. The dirt road was crooked, potholy, and covered with rubble, as steep as the path just now, and it seemed to lead to a small dark forest below. The ancient trees above the head cast a chilly dark thick shadow. A half-recessed house in the intertwined trees appeared in front of Malfoy. The trees blocked all the light and blocked the valley below. The walls are covered with moss, and many tiles on the roof have fallen off. The rafters are exposed here or there. There are lush nettles around the house, and the tall nettles are all the way to the windows. The windows are very small and covered with thick old dirt. As for the door, a dead snake was nailed. The whole house exudes a rotten smell, and there is a powerful wave of black magic. The idea is like iron. Faced with the first Horcrux that was about to face, Malfoy did not dare to carelessly, and imposed a spell of strengthening his will on himself. Why the spell I created is always only an auxiliary effect. Malfoy felt a little helpless at the thought of this, but he still got his spirits up. This Horcrux killed Dumbledore's existence. Malfoy gently pushed the door open, and Marvolo's black gemstone gold ring lay quietly on the ground, as if picking it up seemed easy for him. "Come and put me on, my master." Malfoy seemed to feel that the ring was talking to him, in a deceptive tone. "Don't you have any relatives who have passed away? Or friends?" The curse magic and the resurrection stone set by the Dark Lord seemed to have some wonderful reaction. "As long as you wear me, you can see them. Come on, put on me, but I am one of the three holy objects. Put me on, you will be omnipotent. Take control of the soul." Both Slytherin's pendant box and Riddle's diary have powers that confuse people's hearts. This Horcrux is obviously no exception. He always evokes the deepest desires of people. Malfoy felt dizzy. The voice was ethereal and serene, letting people unconsciously feel relieved. There was a kind of pleasant intimacy. Even without the demand in his mouth, Malfoy still wanted to pick it up and put it on. Just as Malfoy bent down and was about to touch the ring, his body suddenly shivered fiercely, and he curled up on the ground. Apparently subconscious and apparent consciousness began to fight. Bean's sweat beads rolled down his head. The magic sound in S ear continued to echo, "Come on, put me on, you are the king of the world." "But I'm not the rare king of the world of Roche." He struggled desperately with this ring. Uses his mind as the battlefield and his will as his elite soldiers. He desperately resists the coercion and temptation that is always present. I don't know how long it has passed, because for a person suffering from pain, a second is like a century. Suddenly, Malfoy stopped shaking, and the outcome was divided. His clear eyes revealed the result of the battle. "It's terrible, people who obviously didn't miss me die, and they all have such a powerful enchantment, and it's no wonder that the old Deng Zhongxiao." Malfoy touched his back, cold and sweating, careful to make the Wanyan ship, except for itself the willpower. The spell just now is perhaps the most important weight on the balance of war, but it is impossible for people to indulge in illusory happiness forever. Malfoy seemed to have made the same determination. UU reading www.uukunsha.com. He carefully and obsessed with the obscure spell, very light and slow. A spark suddenly appeared in the virtual space, which was a black flame full of strange feelings. I originally wanted to take it back to someone to study it. Obviously it was not enough. Malfoy thought to himself. Due to Deng's obsession with his sister, I guess I haven't had time to explain it. A flying mantra is over, and it's really over. So let me solve you here. Malfoy tried to control Heian to fly to the ring. He had to be careful, he didn't want to be burned to death by one of his followers. Zi. When the black flame touched the ring, Malfoy felt the ring start to vibrate violently. A bloody, black sticky thing seemed to permeate with it, with a very weak and extremely distant pain the screams came from. Boom. It seemed that he had got a combustion aid, and black flames suddenly burst into the air. It's about 2 meters high, and it's fiercely rushed to everything that can burn around. This is not fun at all. Suddenly, there is a big change, and he has only one choice: run. The Horcrux and the magic stone, this is really enough for him to burn. It must be said that Malfoy reacted quickly, and he escaped from the house before the fire spread. Malfoy gasped, as if he had just experienced a war. Looking at the wooden house swallowed by the flames, some flames even rubbed against the old trees, making a crackling sound, and the scene of the flames made Malfoy look trance. Because he thought of a few words from his previous life: set fire to the mountain and sit down firmly. UU Reading is welcome to readers. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all at UU. For mobile phone users, please read. Chapter 20, Little Trouble Muggles Prison. Malfoy will not sit through. He doesn't know, he only knows that he may be in some minor trouble now. Returned home, he found that in the living room, in addition to Narcissa and Lucius, there were 2 middle-aged men in uniform standing, the same thing. The 4 people looked very serious. "Baby, you finally came back, nothing happened." Narcissa saw Malfoy safe and hurried to hug him and patted him on the back. Then whispered in Malfoy's ear, "Go upstairs and go to bed, don't stay here. Don't protect him." Lucius' tone was colder than usual, and then took out several letters. "Look at himself to see the mess he caused." Lucius threw the letter on the table. Malfoy opened the letter, which said so. "Malfoy, we received a report and learned that at 3:40 this afternoon, you used a coma spell on a Muggle at a Muggle residence in Little Hungerton. You know that underage wizards are not allowed to use magic outside the school. If you do this again, you may be expelled from the school, a decree that reasonably restricts underage wizards, 1875, paragraph 3. Please also remember that according to Article 13 of the Confidentiality Law of the International Wizarding Association, any magic activity that may attract the attention of non-magic members, Muggles, is a serious violation of the law. Have a great holiday. Mafalda Hopkick. Ministry of Magic prohibits the abuse of the Department of Magic. This is really a little trouble." Malfoy muttered. "Little trouble?" Lucius' voice grew louder. "Look again," he roared, losing his usual elegance. Malfoy then opened another letter. It says, "Malfoy, we received the report again and learned that at 4:30 this afternoon, you cast a Muggle expulsion spell on an area at a Muggle residence in Little Hangerton. You know that underage wizards are not allowed to use magic outside the school. If you do this again, you may be expelled from the school, a decree that reasonably restricts underage wizards, 1875, paragraph 3. Please also remember that according to Article 13 of the Confidentiality Law of the International Wizarding Association, any magic activity that may attract the attention of non-magic members, Muggles, is a serious violation of the law. Have a great holiday." Mafalda Hopkick. Ministry of Magic prohibits the abuse of the Department of Magic. The contents of the following letters were the same, they were all the same, but the name of the spell was changed. Last, in view of your previous behavior, which has seriously violated the International Witcher Union confidentiality law, we have decided to impose severe penalties on you. According to what we have learned, your performance at Hogwarts seems to be very good. At Professor Dumbledore's under the guarantee, we will not punish you, but will collect your wand and return it at an optional time as a penalty. Your warning letter was sent to our house, my baby didn't see it at all. Narcissa defended Malfoy loudly. Calm down, ma'am, a slightly taller wizard of the two said slowly. We are also just ordered to act. Another slightly chunky wizard took the side call. Hand over the wand. Lucius' voice grew darker. I think I am willing to cooperate with the Ministry of Magic. Malfoy nodded. Passed his wand to the tall, thin wizard. No. Narcissa screamed loudly, obviously unable to accept the reality of her son being punished. The wizards of the two Ministry of Magic couldn't help but reveal an unexpected expression on their faces. Obviously they have been through a lot of battles, and the little wizards who use magic outside the school have seen more, but when the punishment is really down, the little guy's face is absolutely light, and there are also a few crying. Most of them were absolutely tight, and it was the first time they met such a calm little wizard today. They couldn't help but be surprised. It's amazingly cool. The two praised at the same time. I believe this accident is just a minor misunderstanding. We will explain the situation to our superiors. The chunky wizard said. Obviously, things were settled very easily today, which made him feel a good impression on Malfoy, even wondering if it was really wrong. How could such a well-behaved child break the law? Thank you very much. Lucius nodded to them. Okay, we have to go back to life again, it's not too early. The tall and thin wizard said. Stay to eat something, here are prepared desserts. Narcissa seems to be doing her final efforts, trying to please them again, hoping to reduce the punishment. Ma'am, thank you for your kindness, but we are also very busy. The tall and thin wizard rejected this proposal. Then the two of them walked out of Malfoy's house. They should have used Phantom Shift, and their bodies gradually became transparent. Lucius! Narcissa shouted at Lucius, apparently to vent her dissatisfaction. Oh, Narcissa, calm down. Unlike the cold and solemn tone just now, Lucius seemed relaxed. You told me to calm down? Our son was almost expelled. The two guys also took away their wands. How can you calm me down? Now Narcissa looked a little hysterical, no matter which mother heard the child almost expelled from school. It's all this reaction. Don't worry. Lucius said softly, you have to learn from our son at this point, you can see how calm he is. He said, glancing at Malfoy, only to see Malfoy standing silently at the table. The expression was relaxed and unaffected. He continued to say something lightly, the Ministry of Magic is doing business, everyone must give face, public affairs in the public office, everyone looks good on the face. As for the letter said above. Lucius seemed to sneer. Dumbledore and the Ministry of Magic are not in the right direction. The more pleading he is, the more the Ministry of Magic wants to disgust him. They really expelled people. They certainly did not tell the old man about this. As for the wand, I think I had a meal with him a few days ago, and the sponsorship was not so easy to get. Lucius seemed to think of something. Who is he? Narcissa asked. The boss of the two guys just now was looking for investment everywhere for an event fund. Lucius said with a smile. Oh. It seemed that Narcissa's body strength had been evacuated, and she slumped in a chair, seeming to be completely relieved. Lucius has made it clear enough. I also have people in the background. Malfoy had already been psychologically prepared to see it. Judging by Lucius's extreme short-handed personality, it should have been a show just now. Not to mention the little guys in our family can almost cast a spell without a stick. Lucius patted Malfoy on the shoulder, revealing a proud look. Don't talk about those things, let's talk about other things. Lucius digressed on this less pleasant topic. How did you torture the Muggle? Petrified mantra? Well, Yu reads the book www.uukunksha.com just said you used a coma mantra. Lucius was obviously more interested in this. How can you cast a coma spell on tortured Muggles? Then he can't feel pain and fear anymore. You should. Then Lucius began to talk about how he tortured Muggles back then. Yes, he began to teach Malfoy by example. Then he said with admiration, finally, the Muggle expulsion on the scene to prevent the Muggles from discovering the scene is very good and very cautious. Encouraging patted Malfoy's shoulder, saying, true worthy of being my son Lucius. Well, don't talk about your broken things. Narcissa interrupted Lucius. Her mood was much better, and her tone was lighter. Baby, you must be exhausted today. You have to go back to school tomorrow. Go to bed quickly. You have to get up early. Okay, my mother. Malfoy was forgiven. He was obviously not interested in the torture and turned to walk to his room. I haven't told him the unforgivable mantra. Lucius patted his head annoyedly, watching Malfoy return to the room, and Lucius' mood fell. Do you want our son to go around Azkaban? No, no, no. Lucius quickly denied. I'm not talking, I'm not talking. Then I smiled awkwardly. It's just an introduction, and he won't teach him. Lucius muttered. What did you say? Nothing. Lucius spread his hand to show that he was innocent. The night came, and the Malfoy Manor was quiet and speechless all night. UU Reading is welcome to readers. The latest, fastest, and hottest serial works are all at UU. For mobile phone users, please read.